Hey folks, Mike Carrack here to entertain you with the help of Mike and the Mechanics. Any day.
Everybody gets a second chance, circumstance to say I'm sorry.
I'd like to tell you in advance. Take my chance and tell you I'm sorry too. Paul Carrack, a.k.a. the man with the $1 million voice. I actually saw him in 2004, Ringo Starr and his old Starr band. It's him, Paul Carrack, Colin from Men at Work, and John Waite, which had a one-hit wonder in the 80s with that Missing You song. And he also played with a band called Bad English, and they put out a hit, When I See You Smile. When I see you smile, baby, baby, when I see you. Got that piano ballad in it. Anywho, I was listening to Mike and the Mechanics, and it's became apparent to me why they kind of faded away, at least in the States, I think, in the 90s. Because in the 90s, nobody was interested in music that sang about hope and positivity. It was all, they all wanted to sing about despair and desperation, which I actually can relate to. I can see why it was like that in the early 90s. The 80s weren't fun for all of us. The stuff from the 80s was pretty cool, though. But I wanted to talk a little bit. First of all, I wanted to address something. Not the last video, but the video prior to the last, the second to the last video I posted. Things might have got a little on the dark side, and I just wanted to say it was probably had more to do with me maybe being a little succumbing to my own human neediness. I still despise humans, but I didn't mean to really go as dark as I did in that video. But anyways, recently I acquired a copy of that Troublemaker, that book by Leah Rimini. Hope I'm saying that right, Rimini. The wife from the King of Queens show, talking about Scientology. Anyways, years ago, I found a DVD on the subject matter at the Goodwill, and I looked at it and I thought, I came to the conclusion I can understand why a young person, especially one that led a life of not a whole lot of positivity or encouragement, would definitely find Scientology attractive. But part of the first red flag I kind of came across when I started looking into this thing a little bit, because at that time I was going to church for the first time in my life after being invited by a family member. And up to that point, I had never really gone to church as an adult. And I was invited, and I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'll put my own... I consciously decided to put my own preconceived notions of Christianity aside and said, you know what? I'll give this a try. So I went, and I went the week after that, and the week after that, and before long I realized I know a lot, but I don't know everything. And I kind of came to the same conclusion with the Scientology stuff until I dug a little deeper into the subject matter. I thought it was curious that they invite other religions in there. Because when I first read it, I was like, okay, well, what are they preaching then? If they actually do not discourage from other religions to be a member of Scientology. And that was just like the first of many roadblocks I came up with. She makes I didn't read the whole book cover to cover, but the little bit I did read, she makes some valid points about, I'll put it this way. I'm not the kind of person that would put the Pope up on a pedestal. So I'm sure the hell not going to put L. Ron Hubbard up on such a pedestal. In any event, I'm happy at the church I go to. Some of the stuff that she talked about in the book, I compared to my own life with my father, who was despite his lack of intellect, he was still controlling of our lives when we were kids. And she says, if you pose, that's one of the things I remember she said in the book, that if you pose a question that they either don't want to or can't answer, they'll say, well, what does L. Ron Hubbard say? So L. Ron Hubbard is God? I don't know. That, and the fact that the more money you have, the more power you seem to be granted within that establishment, which I totally see as a sign of corruption. There's as I learned more and more about it on my own, not even before I read the little bit of the book that I acquired, I came to the conclusion that there was too many similarities between Scientology and the way my father ran our house. My father's self-serving system of belief dictated by his unbalanced mood. Kind of a my way or no input from you was basically my father's mentality, the way he ran the house. My view of the world outside the house had to conform to what my father told me was truth. And I learned early on in childhood to resort to humor for my own protection against my father's self-serving viewpoint. Certainly, if my own viewpoint was in opposition or too much of an intellectual challenge for his, the latter being more often the case. But it's a good read, though. She shared some insightful behind-the-scenes stuff from the King of Queens show. Apparently, Jerry Stiller is funnier than he knows he is. Is funnier than he knows he is. I remember that episode where he was complaining about why is it the Phillips screwdriver, who came up with that design. So he wanted to have the A screwdriver where it was an A slot. You stick the A slot into the corresponding A. We're going to have a marketing problem. But anyways, she had some insightful behind-the-scenes stuff for that show to share in the book. But, this route is very rural, but every once in a while, a tractor or something. But anyways, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and also talk a little bit more on what kind of led me to the system of belief that I subscribe to now, I guess. Is one way of putting it. It's sort of like nothing is cut and dry in this world. I mean, I think when people think of world solutions, I think they think that there's only one answer to the equation. And as far as human beings know, the equation could be a binomial or even a trinomial. Not to get all religious on you, but if you factor in the Trinity, that is pretty much pretty strong emphasis in Christianity. Yeah. Trinomial is a three-part equation. In case anybody doesn't know that. Anywho, but I definitely don't want to get religious on you because I did not grow up in the faith. I came into it in what I perceived to be my own time, many years later. So for somebody who does not believe in the Christian faith or the Christian way, those beliefs obviously, for me, they're spiritual. They're spiritual. They're not religious. They're spiritual. There is a fundamental difference. But I can honestly say I came into it under my own free will. As far as, like I said, I just decided to put my own conceived notions of what who a Christian was, what Christianity was, because up to that point I had a pretty negative opinion of it. But I just decided to put all that aside and start looking at it more intelligently. And for the first time in my life, well, actually not the first time, because there was that's the other part of this I was going to talk about. But I finally started getting answers that I thought were respectable. I mean, if they couldn't answer a question, they wouldn't belittle me. They would if they honestly didn't know the answer to a question, they say, you know what, I'll have to get back to you on that. But and part of, even in my days of being an atheist, I sometimes, when I look back now, question the authenticness if I actually was in fact an atheist, because I'm a nerd. I grew up watching PBS documentaries, and I remember one called Life Beyond Earth that I tuned in for because of the title. I thought it was going to be about aliens, but it did examine that as a possibility within the confines of of the known universe. But the gentleman in the program put a scenario out there, which till this day I remember because it was so hardcore and wow, and mind-blowing. It's like somebody who would say absence of proof is not proof of absence. And I would agree with that. I mean, because to say that that absence of proof is proof of absence, that's like saying that you know it all. You're God. You know everything. The attitude my father walked around with. But in fact, I'm going to stop here real quick. There's nobody behind me. Okay, so I honestly believe I had freedom of choice in choosing to believe in the Christian philosophy. Not because it was convenient for me to do so, but because in my own self, I came to the conclusion that, absence of proof is not proof of absence. And to assume stuff, you would have to assume arrogance. You'd have to be like my father. You would have to assume a degree of arrogance to say that proof of absence is or absence of proof is somehow proof of absence. And, because you say, well, why? Why? Or if you say, no, that's not true. We can't see it, so it doesn't exist. And you ask the person, well, why? Why is that? Because I said so. Even in childhood, I did not cater too good to that whole because I said so thing. Believe that Jesus died for you. Why? Because I said so. I didn't cater to that. But the documentary, the PBS documentary I saw as a child, pretty much laid it out in the line. The example that the guy gave is, okay, let's assume that the absence of proof is in fact proof of absence. So the guy said, this is the example the guy in the program said, I decided one day I'm going to have lobster for dinner. So I got my plate set up on the table, got my fork, knife, got everything all together. I got ready to sit down, got my glass of wine, all ready to sit down and enjoy some lobster. So I waited. I waited there at the table. I waited. An hour went by. Still no lobster on my plate. So, another hour, still no lobster. So in my hypothesis, I said, okay, obviously lobsters don't exist. Now, I think most people can agree that there's a problem with that logic because we in fact know that lobsters exist. So obviously we forgot to take something into account. We forgot to take into account the lobsters. They got their own agenda. They got their own thing they're doing. They're not interested in climbing up on my plate and waiting to be eaten. You forgot to take. So I guess to put it in a more Christian term, those things you hope and pray for, you better hope that they are part of God's plan because, yeah, anywho. But I did not grow up in the faith. I came into it later on. This is years ago now. A few years, maybe 7 years ago. I was getting curious about stuff, so I actually went to church with my father once. Now, he goes to a straight-up Catholic church. And although I do not follow that denomination for my own reasons, I wanted to check it out and everything, and I did. And I got a chance to talk to the Catholic priest, and I believe the gentleman to be genuinely honest with me, because I came up to him, I said, I just have one question. You just answer this one question, it's all, the only question I need you to answer for me. And he says, yeah. So I told him, does the Catholic Church consider itself a church or the church? And I believe the gentleman was honest with me. He says the Catholic Church considers itself a church. He even volunteered information. He said there was a time when the Catholic Church considered itself the church. And I think any church should. I don't think any church should be proclaiming to be the church, anyways. A church, okay, but the church, not okay. When by some miracle, when we were kids, our father actually let us go to this Bible study down the street from our house for a couple of weekends one summer. And I remember inquiring to somebody there the question, and this is the way I said it as a child. This is back in the 80s. Probably was 7, maybe 8. I said, why did God make the world? And the answer I was given was, he didn't want to be lonely. And I think the more adult way to pose that question would be, Why did an almighty, perfect being choose creation, specifically creation of beautiful imperfection? And probably the reason, despite being a child, probably one of the main reasons I remember that so well, because it was one of the few times in my childhood I actually got an answer that was not only thought-provoking, but not belittling. But, sorry, I thought I saw a T-Rex running across the street up there. Anyways, yeah. I gotta stop for gas. But I'm probably gonna wrap this one up, but I want to wrap it up with a joke that I came across a while back. So anyways, the joke goes as follows. So there's two leaders of a tribal community. They're talking about the future of the tribe. And one of them says, well, half of our people's idealism is geared towards a communist philosophy. Now this is, I should back up a little bit. This tribe is really suffering on account of, from famine and stuff, on account of a drought. So these people are really struggling. And the two leaders talking about it say, well, half of our people, ideals are geared towards a communist philosophy, while the other half beliefs are more in tune with a capitalistic system. Now, the thing that the question we as the leaders of this tribal community must ask is, which social political direction will appease the rain god more efficiently? Thank you for watching. I'm sorry this one went on a little long, but see you next time.